This is the Unspoken Podcast, Special Edition, with Tom Albano and Nick Fodera on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
Listen to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Tom Albano and Nick Fodera here, along with Matt Cerrone from MetsBlog and SNY. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
You got it, guys. Absolutely.
Just wanted to ask you a few questions about the Mets and some of the moves that they've been doing with the winter meetings and the offseason so far. So basically, with the winter meetings now over, what team do you think emerges with the best opportunity to win in 2018?
I mean, it's hard to deny the Yankees just because you got to figure the momentum that they have coming off the Stanton acquisition, and you know that they're not finished. They're going to do a couple other things. I think they're probably going to get a pitcher or two, and just the momentum they had coming off last season. It's hard to imagine they're not the favorites coming out of the American League at this point. The National League is always sort of a crapshoot. I want to see what the Cubs are going to do. My hunch is they're going to, they'll get a closer, they'll get a pitcher, if not two, whether they, do a 2-for-1 type deal and get, Colome and Archer or something in one shot. Who knows? We'll see. But the National League's always kind of a bit of a crapshoot in the playoffs. But in the American League, I mean, as much as it pains me to say as a Mets fan, the Yankees, they're going to be good again.
You say that as if it's almost a bygone certainty. But I must ask, though, what moves did you think going in were going to happen but ended up not happening?
Can you say that one more time? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
What moves were you expecting to happen going into these meetings but ended up not happening?
It kind of went the way I sort of figured. I mean, you talk to people in advance, whether it's agents or people with other teams, and you could just sort of tell there was a bit of a slowdown. The Stanton situation and the Otani situation really kind of slowed things down. And then, I think teams are spending a little bit less across the board relative to last year for whatever reason. And the analytics have really played a huge factor in the game in that a lot of people are working off the same information. They're kind of using the same value set. So there's this equitable kind of feel going on in the league where it's sort of known what teams need, what players, and how things fit. It's a little less unpredictable and sort of market-based as it was in the past. I think it's a little bit more like putting a puzzle together. And so, I think that tends to slow down the activity a little bit. So, I mean, we heard names like Machado and Longoria and all those things. And when you throw those, players like that being available, Archer, like I mentioned, possibly Josh Donaldson, not to mention all the free agents. I mean, that's a lot of talent. And so it takes a lot of research and teams doing, analysis on all these guys and figuring out, and it just slows things down. And so I feel like the free agents that went made sense. There was going to be a run on relievers, and that happened. But short of that, I mean, I feel like, these next couple weeks, there's places where guys will slot in. JD Martinez was a couple teams. That's probably it. Hosmer, a couple teams. That's probably it. And then as those guys start to slot in, I think you'll see a little bit of a scramble probably around, the end of the year, probably even into January. A guy like Jay Bruce, for instance, is a good example. Like, he may just be lingering around until the middle of January. And so that changes the market a little bit. And so it's almost like things have shifted a little bit. It used to be November was pretty crazy. And the winter meetings were kind of the capper. Now it almost seems like, they lay groundwork through the winter meetings, and then December into January now is really where the activity is.
You mentioned Otani before, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on the situation going on that he possibly might need Tommy John.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an early grade tear. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I would be surprised. I mean, I bet you 3/4 of the pitchers in the league have that level tear in their UCL, just, based on pitching since they were kids. The way that injury works is a lot of times, if not all the times, it's, it started fraying on these guys when they were significantly younger, and then, mileage over time, and fatigue and usage of things start to break down, and it's around, in your 20s or 30s where these things start to go. And so, for him, he probably has very similar to what a lot of guys have. My guess is if you scanned, I'm a Mets fan, so pick, Matt Harvey. If you'd scan, if they had scanned Matt Harvey when he was, 22, my guess is he probably would have seen that tear in a very small, cheaper form. And then he needs Tommy John surgery 5 years later. Like, I don't think that's an uncommon story, at least the way I understand the science behind it. So, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The question isn't so much the injury or the tear. It's who leaked it and why is it out there? Like, that's the Angels' business. Now he's a player. He belongs to the Anaheim Angels, so how that information got out there should be of a concern to baseball, and that's why they're investigating it. That's actually the far bigger deal. What was the motive? Who did it? What was that? How do you contain that? Because that's, you can't have guys doing that. The players' union, I'm sure, lost their minds when they saw that.
But might that happen anyway? That that if something went wrong, we were going to hear that there was UCL damage anyway. I mean, with his workload.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, again, it's the kind of thing where, maybe the Angels were aware of it, maybe they weren't. It depends on the medicals that came from Japan. I didn't read the entirety of that report, so I don't know if that was something that the Angels knew at the time of the signing. But even if it was, I mean, regardless, you're right. There's two things. There is the inevitability of the information, and obviously, if he blows out his elbow and he needs surgery, like, we're all going to know it. But it's the leaking of it by another organization or, someone else that, A, is not their player. What is the motive behind it? How did it happen? What was the purpose? All that kind of stuff. Like, that's the kind of thing you don't want. Whether it's inevitable or not, doesn't mean you want guys or want people in the game leaking information that is proprietary, frankly, to the Angels. That's just bad business.
So now, what do you think the Mets have to accomplish moving forward via trade or free agent signing in this offseason? We've heard rumors like the Jurickson, Profar, and Matt Harvey. We've seen that they potentially could be looking at first base or second base options or giving Don Smith some time. What do you think the Mets have to do to move forward?
Wow. Well, have to do and are going to do are probably two entirely different things. They have to add more power to that lineup. They have to get better up the middle on defense, their fielding. They have to get better production out of their catcher. They have to get Michael Conforto to be healthy and back in that lineup on a regular basis with that shoulder injury. They have to stay healthy with the rotation. There's a lot of things they have to do. They need a second baseman. So only, if they're only willing to spend, or for the, ownership's only allowing them to, the GM to spend, around $30 million or so, it's going to be hard to do all that stuff. So my hunch is that they're going to make a trade for a second baseman, probably some way that will help or save them a little bit short term in terms of what they're paying. Getting somebody like Jason Kipnis, but sending a contract, maybe it's Harvey, maybe it isn't, I don't know, over to the Indians, allowing them to save a little bit there, and then maybe acquiring a first base outfielder type to kind of platoon with Dom Smith, the rookie. That kind of thing. I think those are the kind of moves you're going to see. It looks like Orlando Cabrera. Wow, what year am I in? Man, that was, wow. Cabrera on my fantasy team is probably before you guys were born. Asdrubal Cabrera will play third, so they'll put somebody in second. Or they could always get somebody to play third base, like a Todd Frazier, and put Cabrera at second. So they have options there. Wilmer Flores is a useful player that gives them options because he crushes lefties, and so they can move him around the diamond a little bit. But ultimately at the end of the day, it comes down to, it really comes down to the impact that Mickey Callaway, their new manager, can have on the starting rotation, who needs to stay healthy. If those two things are in line and the rotation can, live up to its potential and go out every 5 or 6 days, then, that takes pressure off the offense. It doesn't have to be, an all-star team. It just has to be enough to, justify and sustain the pitching. And I think they could do that, but, 1 or 2 injuries to the rotation, and then it all just falls apart like last year.
Now, given what we know about the way the Mets prefer to act, is it feasible at all to expect them to make any sort of big moves, the big moves that the players are clamoring for?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry. You're breaking up there. You're a little soft.
So, given what we know about how the Mets like to conduct themselves in free agency, do you think that it's feasible at all that they could make a big move if the stars align exactly in the right way?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say that without knowing exactly what the number is, But again, if it's $30 million or less they're looking to spend on the rest of these things, you can do it. I rattled off a bunch of things on MetsBlog the other day, which is, and I may get some of this wrong, so I apologize, but, a combination of things like, trading Harvey for, a reliever that's not making any money, and then signing Moustakas and Kane, that's less than $30 million. You can keep Harvey, you could sign Gerard Dyson, Yonder Alonso, and and trade for Kipnis, and that's still under $30 million. There's things you can. It's just a matter of how they allocate it and how you define big move. Are they going to trade for Machado? Probably not. The money or the signing him long term is one issue, but the other is they just don't have the players to give up in the deal. So they don't have a really good farm system to make that level trade. They're not going to take off the big league roster because really they don't. The players that teams want, the Mets want. You're not trading DeGrom to get Machado. So, you're better off with DeGrom in that scenario. So, unless you're trading Steven Matz and you're giving them, their big shortstop prospect Rosario, for 1 year of Manny Machado, which, you could argue in favor of it. I wouldn't do it, but I can understand if somebody wants to argue that. The Mets aren't doing that. So, I'm not sure what the big move is. Yelich, it's going to be hard. In the division, I don't think that matters too much. But again, they just don't have the young players to part with. So, I think that makes it more complicated. And so that leaves you in the free agent market. And, the players are out there. I just think it's going to be stressful for Mets fans because it's going to probably mean the team kind of waiting on the sidelines a little bit, like most teams, quite frankly, at this point, trying to see where these prices go and getting as many of these people as you can for your dollar. And to define it as a big move, it's hard to say. Can they make the necessary moves? Yeah, probably. But I think they're going to have very little wiggle room once the season starts.
And now, speaking of big moves and big names, do you feel the uproar over Sandy Alderson's comments in the wake of Stanton going to the Yankees, if that was warranted?
I am so tired of his. It's fine. I don't even care anymore. I don't know why anybody gets worked up about anything this guy says because, if he's shown anything, it's the fact that he can say one thing and do something completely different 2 days later. And that's fine. That's, his prerogative, and he doesn't really, I know a lot of people like to get on their soapbox and talk about what, he owes them in terms of messaging and time and what he says, but frankly, he doesn't. What he owes you is a good product for the money you spend on tickets. And, what he says while he's doing that, to me, at this point, is irrelevant because I've seen him say things like, we're not signing Cespedes, and then a week later they sign Cespedes. Or he'll say things like, we're not going to, we can't afford to eat Jason Bay's salary. He's going to be with us in spring training. And then the next week he cuts Jason Bay and eats his salary. So, it happens all the time. And he makes jokes about the outfield, and then he trades for Cespedes. Like, I don't know. To me, at this point, it's irrelevant what he's saying. I'm far more concerned with what he's doing or not doing. And, the fact of the matter is it's 6 weeks into the offseason. There's another 6 weeks left. So, like, he wants to make jokes and go field an awesome team. Make jokes. What do I care? Just field the best team you can. So I try not to get too worked up about it. Where I get bent out of shape is like in February or in late January when he has the season ticket holder meeting and he hasn't done anything to really significantly improve the team, and then he's cracking jokes. That's a little obnoxious. Like, that's a little annoying. I understand that they think it's funny. He thinks it's funny. And, you got to have a sense of humor, and it's just sports. I get it. But, we all only make so much money, and we only have so much time on our hands. Like, and if a fan is using that money, using their hard-earned dollars, and dedicating their time to watching this product, and you're going to joke about it, it's a little insulting. Like, I get it, and I understand that, like, we all got to have a sense of humor and everything. But can I get my money back too while you're making the joke? Probably not. So, like, I think you got to be kind of sensitive to that and understand it at that time. But right now, during the winter meetings, it's all calculation and manipulation, and they're saying what they got to say, so I don't put a whole lot of stock into it.
Reminds me of being a New York Giants fan with the tiredness of management.
I hear you. Yeah. I'm a Jets fan, so it's not much better.
It's funny that you should say that, though, because do you think that the consternation that Mets fans are feeling, that the team is kind of standing pat and Sandy Alderson being glib about it, is actually going to translate to decreased ticket sales?
I think it's all about the players. It's all about the players. It's all about the talent and the potential to win and the results. I mean, really, it can influence it. I think you'd be shocked, quite honestly. And I only know this because, like, it's what I do for a living. I'm a fan, but I'm also, I write about the team. And so I'll go to the ballpark and I talk, and sometimes I'll go out there and, like, I have a press pass, but, like, I'll spend the whole time in the stands just walking around, shooting it, just talking with people and talking with people that I know, or just talking to random fans, just asking what they think. It's amazing to me. Like, you do what you're doing. I write about the team, or people are on TV. We talk about this stuff all day. Most fans in the ballpark, people buying tickets, they don't know as much as you think about this stuff. I don't think they're paying as close attention to everything Sandy Alderson says. Like, we get lost in, the Twitterverse and the internet conversation and stuff. But, like, when you're out there, like, I can remember at the beginning of last year talking about Ahmed Rosario, and, like, maybe 2 out of 10 people I talked to even knew who he was. Meanwhile, the people I'm talking with are decked out in full Mets gear. They're there in May. They're cheering. They're into it. They know all the guys on the team, but they don't know who Ahmed Rosario is. So, like, whereas, like, I've known who this kid was for forever, it seems like. So, like, I think we get kind of lost in the impact that things like the winter meetings and the back pages and all that kind of stuff have. It's important and it matters, but I'm not sure it matters enough to the extent that it moves the needle in the way that I think we fear. And that's probably partly why, he says what he says and stuff, because he knows it's a little bit of an echo chamber. Because at the end of the day, what sells tickets is when they sign Carlos Beltran, or they trade for Yoenis Cespedes, or they make those are the things. They go to the World Series and they bring Cespedes back and everybody's excited. And that's like, that is what, 80-90% of the fan base is aware of. That's what moves the needle. That's what sells tickets. And so I just, to me, it's always about what happens on field at the end of the day.
Now, mentioning Harvey before and potential deals that could involve Harvey, like the Profar for Harvey deal or Harvey going to Cleveland, do you think these would be strategic trades 100%, or does it have to do with maybe attitude of sorts of Harvey in New York?
It's a good question. I remember thinking to myself when I was writing about the Harvey deal, or writing about the rumors, just how much I'm sure Sandy Alderson would enjoy actually trading Harvey. Just given all of the drama and all the things that have gone on, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But, Sandy's pretty calculated. He's pretty he's an emotional guy. Like he gets it, but he also understands that it's business and that you do what's best for the team. And I think if that meant keeping Harvey, then you keep him. I don't think, I think at the end of the day, Sandy Alderson wants the best out of the 25 guys on the roster. And if Harvey's one of those guys, then, he's going to do what he can to make sure Harvey does the best that he can. If he's expendable and they can trade him or they can leverage him into helping the team in a different way, then he's going to do it regardless of who Harvey is or not. But will he sort of be happy that he doesn't have to deal with Harvey's off-field stuff? Probably. I'm sure that doesn't, hurt the situation. And it will certainly play an impact when it comes time to potentially re-sign him in a year if he's still on the team. I think that's where that kind of thing starts to become far more of a bigger issue for somebody like Sandy.
But has the time passed to sell high on him? Because, we all know that he's not the pitcher he was 2 years ago. Thoracic outlet surgery, it's a big thing to come back to. So what can Harvey be for any team, not just the Mets?
I don't think anybody knows. There's enough data and stuff to suggest from the end of last year, and scouting reports and whatnot, that, he will be okay this season. I don't, if I'm an acquiring team or if I'm the Mets and I'm looking at it, there's sort of there's the hope and the romance of it. And I think that's something that they can get themselves wrapped up in that maybe another team won't, because they haven't sat through it for the last 5 or 6 years. But the facts are that he probably can go out there and on any given start, be, a good enough quality start kind of pitcher to get through. The question is he going to be better than that? Can he overperform? Can he give you better results? Is he trending in a way that, he can get back to maybe where he was that first year back from Tommy John surgery in 2015? And if he can do that, the other question is he going to hurt himself again? Is there another injury around the corner? Can he sustain himself for 30 starts?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say. They've sunk a lot into him. There's the reality of his trade value, and you have to weigh that against how much it would cost to replace him in the rotation. And ultimately, I think they probably land on, it is what it is. Like, let's just stick, because, best case scenario, he's awesome and they win and it's great. More realistically, he's so-so and they're playing so-so. And then the question becomes, do we trade him at the deadline because we're not going anywhere? What can we get for him? Worst case scenario is he's a complete bust and they're winning or losing and they can't do anything with him and they get nothing out of him. So they just have to make that call. My hunch is, like I said before, I think it's going to come down to the balance of the deal. Like if there's a trade that makes sense that can improve them in another area and it's going to cost them less to replace him, we'll do it. And if they can't, then they'll keep him and he's their starter and they'll move on, and they'll just address it as they go. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
What do you think Mickey Callaway can accomplish with this team that Terry Collins couldn't?
Well, Terry Collins accomplished a lot. Let's not undersell it. He got into the playoffs 2 years in a row in the World Series once. And they're not that different in terms of the pitching. Again, it comes down to the health. But I think also, and again, I'm going to assume that everybody's feeling good and they're doing their jobs and they're on the field. I'm very eager to see how he utilizes the research and information from the front office and how he implements that into, the decisions he makes during the game, specifically with the bullpen and with the starting pitchers. I think that's going to be refreshing and necessary. I think the pitchers will welcome it. I think he's got the right pitching coach and the right bullpen coach. The three of them, I think, are going to do really well with it. They're all into that stuff, and I think it's one of the things that the front office probably wished Terry Collins would do, but didn't, just because it's just not his thing. He's an older guy, and I just don't think wasn't that aware of all those things. Callaway is, and so I think that's going to be the real, the real magic that occurs between the front office, the bench, and the pitchers. I think that loop is going to be where this team succeeds or fails. Again, assuming they're all healthy. Hit and runs and double switches and stuff, I think that'll be interesting just because he's an American League guy. He's a pitcher. I don't know how that's all going to go, but I don't think that stuff ultimately matters as much as executing on the pitching staff and how he motivates them and kind of makes adjustments and then looks at the data, looks at their delivery, looks at their personalities, and puts that stuff together. He did a terrific job with the guys in Cleveland. If he could do that same methodology and bring it to the Mets, I think I think they're going to do fantastic as a staff. They just got to stay on that field.
Now, I must ask, in the wake of Disney acquiring Fox's regional sports networks yesterday, and assuming that this deal can get done in time for the 2018 regular season, what kind of impact do you think that this deal has over regional sports networks? I mean, even local ones like SNY and Yes.
I could not begin to tell you, man. I stepped away from the business side of what SNY does about a year ago. I just focused strictly on producing content for MetsBlog and this sort of stuff that I do on as a content consultant. I really don't know. It's a subscription-based business, so I don't really know what their plans are and how that's gonna impact things. If it does anything, it's for over the top, content delivery, but a lot of that gets done through MLB Advanced Media anyway, which BAM has a huge, which Disney has a big piece of. So, I really don't know. I would be lying to you if I said I did, and I would be phony if I could predict it, because I honestly don't think anybody can. I talked to these executives and these guys, and they all have different answers, and we're all trying to solve different problems, so who knows?
What's the most consistent answer that you get?
I'm sorry?
What's the most consistent answer that you get regarding what they say to you about this deal?
I think there's concerns over how they square, or what I think it's concerns over their role in the streaming. How does that shake out between, because all that stuff for the most part gets handled through BAM. Fox has their own situation. Disney's going to have their own situation. Disney has parts of MLB Advanced Media. What does that take away from the teams? It's that sort of, I feel like that at the end of the day is probably where the concern is, and what are the networks entitled to? What is the team entitled to? What is the league entitled to? And that shifts, with, when you're Yes Network and now you're essentially, you and BAM are essentially, or I should say you and Fox and everything are all owned by the same company, and they're investing in another. Like, it's just so incestuous. I hate to use that word, but I don't know where the money goes and who benefits, and I just think that complicates it.
Matt Cerrone from MetsBlog and SNY. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this interview Nick and I did with Matt Cerrone. That's going to do it for us here. Go like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at the UDUP. Also, don't forget to follow us on Periscope at the UDUP. Go like and follow the Undetermined Podcast Network itself at the UD Network on Facebook and Twitter. And that's going to do it. I'm Tom Albano, and for Nick Fodera, we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, a special edition, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network.